Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. I just connected with these two individuals just recently. I'm really excited about what they're going to share and the things that we're going to discuss. But my good friends, Sam and Jesse McCreedy, have joined me on Dad Up. Thank you guys very much for joining me all the way from Italy.
Yeah, well,
That's
thank
right.
you for having us.
Yeah,
Buongiorno.
thank you. We're excited to be here.
Awesome. I'm excited to get into all this. It's funny. I have guests on my show from all over the world, and I think my last guest that I had on, his episode hasn't even published yet. I just had him on a couple weeks ago, last week or the weekend before, and he was in Britain. He's in Britain. So yeah, you guys are in Italy. And as I was telling you, my editor's in Italy too. So very somewhat familiar with that area. I'd like to go one of these days.
Where is your editor?
I forget the name of the city he's in. Honestly,
Okay.
I forget the name of the city. I just know he's in Italy, and yeah. So yeah, it's like I said, it's one of those places that is on the bucket list to visit. So maybe if my wife and I can sneak away and go off to Italy, we'll have to hit you guys up and we'll break some bread
Yeah.
together.
Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be
definitely.
great.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. It's a lovely place.
Yeah,
We'll be honored to
absolutely.
be your tour guide.
All right, cool. Sounds good. Well, let's get started. Let's learn a little about you guys, Sam and Jesse. Let's learn a little about you guys, kind of your back history, kind of your story, and then obviously what you guys are doing now.
Sure.
Okay.
Why don't you go ahead, Jess?
Okay. So I guess maybe the most interesting thing about me is I grew up overseas, in Indonesia and Malaysia. So that kind of colored, I guess, my worldview right away. And I came to the States to go to college and majored in English because I wanted to be a writer, not realizing that majoring in English is really not the best choice to do unless you want to be a teacher. And so I ended up really out of desperation going to law school because I didn't want to be a waitress for the rest of my life. So
Right.
I thought, well, I got to do something, and so I went to law school, and around that time is when Sam and I met and became friends. And
Yeah,
um, after about 2 years, we started dating and got
yeah,
married and have been together for a very long time,
yeah,
a long happy years.
yeah. A little over a quarter century together now. It's the
Yeah.
best time of my life for sure.
Oh,
Um,
that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. So
And I think part of when we first got together, Sam was in medical school, and I made him promise, like, okay, we're in these professions that typically, especially back then, people really kind of you dig in and you work your way up the corporate ladder, and
Mhm.
you stay in one place. And we both came to this realization that that's not what we wanted. That we wanted to see the world and use our education to basically sponsor that kind of experience. And so that kind of also shaped our trajectory, I suppose.
yeah, I think
And
so. Yeah, so as Jesse mentioned, she grew up in Southeast Asia, in Malaysia and Indonesia. Her folks were missionaries there, and I was a Navy brat, but never left the United States. My dad was a pilot in the Navy, and we bounced around every few years, as military families do. But I was in exotic Glenview, Illinois, and Willow Grove, Pennsylvania, and never had been
he
out
went
of the
to
state.
Hawaii
Yeah,
when he was two.
we moved to Hawaii when I was 2 weeks old and left before my third birthday, so I have zero memory of Hawaii. But yeah, so my first time out of the country, right after we got married, Jesse wanted me to see Asia, so we had some time off. We went to Thailand and Malaysia and kind of backpacked around for a month, and that kind of got me hooked on the idea of getting out of the States and seeing the world. And yeah, we've been kind of consciously looking for opportunities overseas, looking for opportunities to get out and just see what's going on around the world, learn from other people, other cultures. It gives you, I think, a good appreciation for other people, but also for the United States too. I love
That's true.
America, will always be as patriotic as anybody you ever meet, but I also realize that it's a big, beautiful world out there with a lot of different, people and different points of view and ways of doing things. And it's been very, very informative. But yeah, she's I blame her. She infected me with the travel bug, and we
It's my
bounced
fault.
around quite a bit.
Yeah,
Well,
I think it's actually hard once you have had that experience of, and I'm sure with you with the military, although I don't imagine your experiences were quite as fun, but you know, to live in other places, once you've done that, it's actually kind of hard to go back and just live in one place for the foreseeable future. You just have that itch, like, well, what else is out there? You know, you want to just see and explore. And I think it's a good thing, but it's also it can be a bit of a detriment, I think, sometimes. Like it's a hard balance
I mean,
to strike.
it's life, you know, everything you do has its pros and its cons, you know, and so I mean it's, you know, not just, you know, I don't know, living in pixie dust or whatever, but yeah, it's been a fun life, and you know, we've been very blessed to be able to get out and see things, and you know, been blessed to, you know, have a good experience together. Um, our first uh our first job when we finally finished all of our training, so she finished law school, I guess I guess it was a year after I finished medical school, so we kind of had a little staggered thing. So I was doing my internship and residency training. She finished law school, worked in a big law firm. We were in Jackson, Mississippi, you know, is where we met. And when I finished my residency training, finally, you know, it was like it's time to go do something. So our first big job was actually in Germany. Did that for a year, and that actually inspired Jessie's first book that she wrote, Liberty Frye and the Witches of Hessen,
Yeah.
which is
It changed my life
yeah.
because when we that year we were there, it was really rough on us because the contract he took was terrible.
Yeah.
And me being this just too excited just at the idea of like living in Germany, that I thought, oh, I can find a job, you know, I'll find a job there. And it was a little bit of a rude awakening to go to Germany at the height of their recession and look for a job at a law firm in Frankfurt and realize that, oh, actually, you know, big international law firms in Frankfurt don't want to hire an attorney from Mississippi who just got out of law school. So I ended up like proctoring tests for $9 an hour and thinking I'd ruined my career, which I guess I kind of did in a way.
I think it was a good thing.
But it also put us where we were stationed was the birthplace of the Grimm brothers. And I grew up reading fairy tales. Like I just loved fairy tales and was kind of obsessed with them. And I couldn't believe the good fortune we had to actually be in the place, like the actual city where they were born, and had this big statue in honor of them. And on our weekends, we would go and like go to different locations where the Grimm brothers went, or where they collected their fairy tales. And it was this big connection because the Grimm brothers were also lawyers who didn't want to be lawyers. So it was kind of this cool thing where even though we were kind of losing our shirts financially, and it was quite difficult in a lot of ways. It was a big challenge for our marriage too, I think. But it ended up making us a lot stronger, and it ended up having me write. Because of that experience, I realized I don't have an excuse. I have to go back to the thing I always wanted to do, which was to be a writer. And I realized like I have no excuse. I literally cannot find a job. Like if I don't do this, it's completely on me. And it forced me to sit down and write the first draft of my first book. And that act changed everything for me, I think. And it's kind of changed the way we look at the world and what's important too.
Yeah. And it also, I think it just kind of further reinforced that idea of, I think, thinking outside the box and, you know, looking for different opportunities rather than just, you know, following the prescribed course that, you know, that people have set out for you. And, you know, and there's
a lot of, I'm sure everybody has that, where there's just a lot of pressure that's spoken and unspoken about what's expected of you in your life, like what you're supposed to be as a human being and what you're supposed to produce. And I think people are a lot more sensitive to your own individual needs now, but I think it's still like, I think when you really try, like struggle, like when you go through a struggle like that, it helps you realize that what other people expect of you, or how they define your success, or whether or not you have achieved what they thought you should achieve, what if you've achieved your potential, it doesn't matter. Like what matters is what your values are. And if you're pursuing those values, as long as, I mean, you're not hurting other people along the way, obviously, but I think that helped us realize that we just need to stay focused on what we want out of life, regardless of what it looks like to everyone else on the outside, right? Because everybody thought we were crazy for wanting to just like jump from job to job and just to see the world. So it was, I think
Yeah,
that was a big growth for us.
I think so.
Right. I mean, that's interesting. I mean, yeah. I mean, everybody wants to enjoy the experiences they go through in life, and then sometimes they face those struggles, those challenges, and a lot of times you'll have, even families in particular with kids and stuff like that that just go, I don't know what we're gonna do. How do we get
Yeah.
out of this? But for you guys, just going through the experience of not only getting out of the States and going overseas and taking that chance, that's a huge risk, right? You took a massive risk, and where it started to lead you is, oh no, we took this massive risk and now we're realizing this probably wasn't the best decision. And it opened
It was a
up
bad
doors.
decision.
Right. It opened up doors though. It opened up other
Yes.
Yeah,
opportunities for you, and it's led you to where you are now. And I know, Sam, you're a doctor, correct? And
correct.
you currently if I read correctly when I did the research, you used to be a veterinarian.
Yeah, yeah. So I practiced veterinary medicine for about 4 years full time, and then decided I didn't have enough student loan debt, and that's when I decided to go back to medical school, which is a good move because that led to me meeting Jesse, and
Okay.
so yeah, yeah, and I still actually practiced veterinary medicine throughout medical school and my first year of my training and internship. Kind of part time as I was going to school to kind of make a little money on the side, keep my hand in it. But then, yeah, once I got deeper into human medicine, it's pretty all encompassing, and not really much time to do anything else, as far as veterinary medicine goes. But yeah, did that for a while. Still enjoy it and have a lot of fondness for that.
I think you
Okay.
missed it a little.
Yeah, yeah, at times I
Yeah.
do. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I've found that in some of the places we've lived, when we were in the South Pacific, when we were in Indonesia, yeah, people still would, kind of sort of come to the back door of the clinic. Hey, can you look at my dog? Stuff. So a little bit of that on the side still.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I mean, that's a huge switch too. I mean, there's right there's another risk that you took going back to school, to kind of shift gears and go in you're still a doctor, but going in a completely different direction, that has
Yeah,
ultimately paid out, right? Or paid off.
I think so. I think in life, yeah, I had it described to me actually when I was in medical school by a psychologist, and he was saying that life is kind of like a groove in a record, and the longer you're in it, the deeper you get in this groove, and the harder it is, to get out of that thing, and and but sometimes it's the right thing to do. I
If it's
enjoy.
a good groove.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed veterinary medicine. I got a lot out of that, but yeah, after a while, it just seemed like, time to go do something different, and glad I did, and ended up going into doing a residency in family medicine. And that was a little bit of a conscious choice too, to sort of keep it open for other opportunities. It's much more broad based than, drilling down to a single specialty or whatever. And it's, yeah, I think again, like I said earlier, I think with most choices in life, you always have some potential risk, you always have some potential reward. You hope you make good choices. Sometimes it doesn't work out the way you want it to, and you try to learn from that, and
Mm-hmm.
move on and keep going, and
Mm-hmm.
I think what's the phrase from We the Living, I think, where it's like, you get this one precious life, and what are you going to do with this? How are you going to live this one precious life? And yeah, I think we want to do that. The most recent book we put out, Theodore the Sloth Who Wants to Race. That's kind of some of the values that we're trying to impart in that of, hey, you have these dreams, you have these values, you have these things you want to pursue, and it's worthy. Your dreams and your worth is every bit as good as anyone else's. And
Mm-hmm.
and you should pursue these things, and you shouldn't just let society dictate to you what you're allowed to think or what you're allowed to pursue. And yeah, I mean, yeah, I like to think we're still learning. Life is about learning, I think.
Yeah.
I'm just listening to you now and I realize like basically it's an autobiography, right? That just occurred to me.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, I think that's cool. Jesse, for you, you're focusing just on your writing right now. And how many books have you written?
I've got five. I had to look over to make, yeah, I've got five. I do some legal work still. Like I keep my hand into that. So I do that part-time remotely.
Hmm.
But mostly, yes, I'm focused on my writing. And if I could ever justify just doing that all the time, that would be my dream for sure. So,
Oh, that's cool. Well, I mean, the reason that you guys are here, the reason I wanted to have you on it, obviously, is because of your latest book, Theodore the Sloth Who Wants to Race. And when I saw that title, I went, wait, what? Because when you think of a sloth, you don't think of a sloth that's racing. And
Exactly.
so I went, okay, that's got an interesting title, and that's a catchy title. It's like, all right, I don't know if that makes complete sense to me, but I'm willing to learn more. And it's a
well,
children's
thank
book, right?
you.
I think it's really a neat story. And so I guess my first question to you guys, when it comes to, because Sam, you co-authored it, when it comes
Mhm.
to the writing of this book. I mean, you shared a little bit, Sam, but what was really the inspiration behind the writing of this book? Was it based on your own past experiences and experiences that you lived and wanted to kind of share that in this story, or was it based on, other people's experiences that you have witnessed, or was it both?
Sure. Yeah, I would think, I mean, ultimately, I mean, it really came from both of our experiences, so, as I said, we've kind of made it an intentional, conscious decision to try to look for different opportunities around the world. And that's difficult. It's not easy.
Especially as professional couple that are
Yeah.
trying to match that up,
Yeah,
it
it
very,
is, so I mean there's certainly lots of opportunities where you can go and pay money, to join a mission somewhere or something like that. And that's wonderful. But our goal was kind of, hey, let's go find things where we can go live in a place for an extended period of time, typically at least a year or more, and really kind of get integrated into this, into the job, into the community, into the culture, and learn something about it. But it is very difficult to find those opportunities. Sometimes they don't work out great. We mentioned Germany as an example. We pretty much lost all of our savings. I was a contractor, and it was not a good contract. And we came back to the States with our tails between our legs, completely
we
broke.
had to live with his
We
parents.
had lived with my parents for about a
Mm.
month before we got back on our feet.
Yeah.
And we were kind of at one of those points in our life where, we were sort of I was working, we had come back to the States. It was right after Hurricane Katrina. So my parents were down on the Mississippi coast. That's where I graduated high school, and that area was completely devastated. So
Mhm.
that was when we were in Germany when that hurricane hit. We went back to the Mississippi coast to take part in doing recovery work. Jesse was working for a nonprofit that was helping people that lost their houses, and I worked in a community health center in a little temporary clinic they set up in a community that had lost their clinic. Um, and we did that for a few years. We thought we'd go there for about a year or so, but 5 years later, we were still doing that. And we were kind of at a down spot, probably around the midpoint of thinking, what are we going to do with our lives, trying to sort it out, and pursuing different opportunities, and, really looking into this one, and that would fall through, or that one would fall through. And we were literally one night just sort of sitting there kind of feeling sorry for ourselves. And I forget which one of us, but one of us said, I feel like, just like nothing I'm doing is working. Like I'm just not made for this. I feel like I'm some kind of like a sloth that wants to be a championship racer. And that kind of inspired it. And we just started dorking around and bouncing, this
Yeah.
rhyme off of one another, and kind of did the first draft, really, I guess
That
that
night, well,
evening. And
most of it.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just sort of a mutual thing where we just kind of started making a poem that we thought was kind of funny, talking about a sloth who wants to race.
Yeah, and I did. This is back before sloths were cool. Like
Right.
people,
Right.
nobody talked about like sloths are like the big
Yeah,
celebrity animal
they're very
now.
trendy now. Yeah.
But like back then, I mean, I didn't know much about sloths at all, other
Yeah,
than
this was
they live in the
probably, when was
rainforest.
that, like 2008,
Yeah,
maybe
a
something
long
like that.
time
It was a
ago.
while ago. Yeah.
And so Sam, like being a veterinarian, he was like just kind of throwing out all these quirky facts about sloths, and we're laughing and writing this story. And we realized like we're a very strange couple. Like this is like not normal for this to be like our fun therapy to
Yeah.
write a story. But it ended up really being helpful to us because it turned something. We were really at a low point, as Sam said, and we
Hmm.
had this shared experience where it turned like this kind of negative low thing into this shared creation that we both participated in. And it's something that stayed with us for a long time, obviously, because we didn't get it published until September of
Yeah.
last year. But it was another example of something that's negative, and if you just try to look at it in a different way, you can turn that into something that's constructive in your life and rewarding. It doesn't always work out that way, but it was sort of a lesson that
Yeah.
sometimes when you're feeling sorry for yourself, there's another way to look at it, and it can turn that into a really rewarding product or experience that you're proud of, and that enhances your lives together.
Yeah, I think so, and so, yeah, I mean, we wrote that and, we thought it was kind of cute and funny. And at the time, we thought, oh, this would be, a good kids book. But neither of us were in any way, shape, or form illustrators. We're like, oh, we got to get an illustrator, for this thing. And Jesse was primarily the one, pursuing that, trying to get an illustrator and not having a lot of luck with that. And I kept saying, well, why don't you draw it? You do it. And she was like, well, I don't know how to draw. I'm not an illustrator.
Like, all.
Yeah. And I was like, well, I think you could do it. I think you could do it. And then finally, what, about 2 years ago?
No,
or so?
longer
Was
than
it
that.
longer than
Like
that?
I first did some sketches of what I thought Theodore would look like over 10 years
Was
ago,
it
I
that far?
think.
Okay.
But then I was like, this is taking me like it would take me 4 hours to do like a sketch of one character. I'm like, this is not my forte. And so I would just get really frustrated and give up. And as Sam said, we just had a hard time finding someone to illustrate it, mostly because I think it was my fault because I couldn't articulate exactly what I wanted out of this artist. And not knowing how to do all this, it was hard to coordinate with someone to tell them what you want if you don't know what you want. So there was a communication issue, and I just kept failing at achieving that. And so Sam just kept encouraging me and kind of pushing me, quite frankly. And so I kept trying. And then several years ago, I just really got down to, I'm like, every day I'm going to spend at least an hour just trying to draw. And I just kept doing it and doing it. And like eventually I got the illustrations for our book, and they're not like, I don't think any artist would actually be very proud of those illustrations, but the kids so far really like them. Like every time I go to school, the kids like love the illustrations. So that's been a really cool experience too, to realize even something you think there's no way you can do, you can achieve that. If you just keep trying and making small steps towards that goal, you'll be surprised at what you can overcome.
Yeah.
So
And I personally think they're pretty good. One thing I
I
like
do
about
too.
the
I actually do
too
too.
is that unlike what you're seeing so much of nowadays, there's not any AI in it at all. This is all her creation, from, by her hands. And I think it's pretty good stuff. And as you said, we've gone to several schools. Jesse's been doing presentations. I've kind of, served as support as a few and where I can. And yeah, the kids do. They love the drawings. They seem to really enjoy interacting with Jesse an awful lot too. Just so I think it does. It resonates with kids.
it actually, the drawing is, oh, is it okay if I continue with this
Oh,
or?
go for it. Yeah,
Okay.
it's all you.
So I think the drawing's actually it's been a really important life lesson too, because this is one of the things that I encounter at schools is that kids want to talk about the illustrations. And then they say, I want to draw, but I don't know how to do it. I can't do it. And I get so frustrated and I just crumple up my paper and throw it away. And I can't do it. I'm like, I know exactly how you feel. And I can tell them I was exactly in that spot, but like way older than them. And that I just kept trying, and that it's a very rare thing for somebody to try to do something and just get it right the first time. I said, that's just not how it works in life. Like, even if you're good at something, you still have to work at it to make it better. I said, so if you're just trying to learn a skill that you don't really feel like you have a natural ability, it doesn't mean you can't do it. It doesn't mean that you can't become a good artist. It just means that you have to work really hard and try and not give up. So it's sort of like this surreal, like, synergy of like the message behind Theodore is the same experience that I went through, and then the same thing that I'm communicating to the kids about. It's very weird. I didn't anticipate that.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because that's what I was going to say, is that here you are spending a lot of time trying to learn how to draw and feeling like you weren't getting anywhere, and
Yes.
you're explaining exactly what a sloth goes through when
Yes.
he's moving. He's trying to move at this, to go in this direction, and it feels like he's not getting anywhere, so you were living the life of Theodore. In essence.
Yes, exactly. And feeling just I mean, just feeling honestly quite a bit like a human failure so many times because, what am I doing? I'm trying to like figure out how to draw sloth hairs. Like I remember I had like 3 hours on a Saturday and I got so upset. I'm like, Sam, I just spent 3 hours trying to draw sloth hair. It's what is happening to me? Like, why am I doing this? And I didn't even, I was so far in at that point. I just didn't want to give up. I'm just like, I'm
That's
just
cool.
now like half my life feels like it's been devoted to this. I'm not going to stop
Yeah.
now.
Yeah,
So,
you get to that point where you're just like, all right, I've come this far. I might as well keep
yeah,
going. Right. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
I grew up drawing, so I'm pretty good at drawing, but I grew up constantly drawing, constantly doodling. I have a booklet that I did all kinds of drawings in as a kid, and then I mean even when my kids were younger, I drew out Christmas decorations on wood and cut them out and put them in our
Wow.
front yard and all that stuff, painted them on all that stuff. So I've always been good at drawing, but it does take a lot of work. It does take a lot of time and it does take a lot of practice. There's plenty
Yeah.
of things that I can't draw, but for the most part, yeah, drawing it's actually a therapeutic exercise to go through, and something that even though you were frustrated, you're actually going through some therapeutic changes in yourself and rediscovering who you are through this process of not only drawing but learning and writing this book and being an illustrator. So you're now an author and an illustrator. So I think it's fascinating that you went through that process and stuck with it.
When you draw then, do you feel like it's therapeutic for you? I mean, does that fulfill you in that same way
Yeah,
or?
for me, it's more of I enjoy the visualization of it, where I'm able to put something that's in my head down on paper. And it's the same thing with an author. An author's, visualizing what the story that they're writing or
Right.
the story that they want to present and then putting it out on paper. It's the same thing as an artist when they start drawing something. They're visually seeing this in their head and they want to put it out on paper. And so, yeah, for
Yeah.
me, mentally, it is therapeutic. And it's been I don't draw all the time. It's not something that I do on a regular basis anymore. But one of the things that I do now is I'm a big creator of Legos. So I've just for whatever reason I've just had this fascination with Legos, and it's something that
Really?
I never had as a kid, but it's something that I discovered as an adult that hey, I'm actually kind of enjoying this and it's actually therapeutic. I actually do it as a stress reliever, like just to play with Legos. It allows my mind to just kind of let loose and just kind of decompress and
Wow.
it is pretty fascinating how stuff like that works. So yeah, for you, it is
Awesome.
therapeutic. So
That sounds like a really good YouTube channel to me.
right.
Like Ryan on Legos.
Right. Yeah, now that's one of them, right? Well, actually, both those are right there.
Yeah, I
The
was about to
the,
ask
the
if
Eiffel
those were,
Tower,
yeah.
Eiffel Tower, and the
Yeah.
Lamborghini. That's two
Yeah,
of them
those are
right there.
Legos. Yeah.
I thought it was a poster. Oh my
No,
goodness.
no, that's
That's,
that's that's the Eiffel Tower.
oh
Yeah.
wow. I knew it was the Eiffel Tower. I thought
Yeah,
wow,
Uh,
that's
and then and
impressive.
then a
yeah.
Lambo right there, Lamborghini right there. But yeah, I've
Nice.
got
Some
I've
of
got
the
an office full of them. I've got shelves in the room over here full. I mean, it's just my wife is like more Legos. All right.
Well, you know what? At least she knows what to get for you for Christmas. Like,
Oh,
because that's
it
always a
happens all the
problem when
time. Birthday,
Yeah,
Christmas, Father's Day. It's like what Legos does he not have?
that's awesome.
that's a good one to have because they're always coming up with things. Like
Yeah.
Oh
it's
yeah,
amazing. I didn't
yeah.
know they had Lego stores, but yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah,
it's a huge
Oh yeah, yeah,
industry.
it's
yeah,
huge now. I
yeah.
remember Legos when I was a kid, but they've just exploded in
Yeah.
popularity lately.
And
They're
they're not
cool.
cheap either, which is crazy. They're
Wow.
not cheap. Um,
Oh,
Anyways, so yeah, so I think actually it's really cool that you were able to illustrate Theodore in the way that you did. And one of the things that kids love most about children's books is not so much the story, although the story is part of it, right? I think 80% of a children's book is really the illustrations,
I think you're
especially the
right.
younger the kids are, the more they
Hmm.
appreciate the colors and the different, pictures that they see, the characters that they see in a book. So I think that's what is really most fascinating. So for you to be able to share a story of Theodore, not only through the poems that are the poem that is within the story, but also through his actions and the things that he's doing, really captures the kid's attention. So I think that's certainly beneficial for the success of this book.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I still vividly remember picture books when I was a kid that just resonated with
Oh
me.
yeah.
I mean the Dr. Seuss stuff and Go Dog Go and Cat in the Hat
Where the wild things
yeah,
are.
yeah,
Right.
the Green
Those
Eggs and
this is
Can,
like
yeah,
one of those spreads on where the wild things are.
yeah,
There's so many details. Like I would
yeah,
be like, oh, it's a whole universe.
Right,
yeah,
right. Yeah, yeah, I think about my boys. My boys are older now. They're 26 and 23, but when I think about them when they were younger and all the books that we used to read to them when they were little. And my older son was an avid reader. He still is. He's still an avid reader. My younger son, not so much. He wasn't so much into the reading. And it's funny when I remember sitting down with them as little kids, little teeny kids, and I would read a story at night to them, and my older son would be into it. My younger son would have nothing to do with it. And my younger son would be so out of tune with the story. Didn't matter how many pictures were in it, didn't matter what the story was about, didn't matter what it did,
What's
none of that
happening?
stuff. He was like, and his little words in a 2-year-old voice would be like, and the end. And then he would close the book. So he was over it. We could be one page in and be like, and the end. And he just wasn't having it. So, but I mean, obviously you got to find kids' interest. His interest ended up being, sports big time. And that's, you can give him a sports book and he'll read it. But
There you
anyways.
go.
that's neat.
So, but I want to ask you this one more question, and I know we've gone a little long, and I apologize for that. But one more question before I
No,
let you guys go.
wow.
For the messages within the book, I know there's a real. I mean, we've shared why you wrote the book and really the meaning behind it. But for a kid who is maybe a younger, kid who's maybe hearing this story, maybe you've gone to a classroom and you're reading this to a classroom full of kids. What's the real message behind this book that you really want them to take home, well, to take away from? And then also maybe it's for parents too, that maybe are sitting down with their child at night and reading this story to them. What's the deep meaning message behind it that you would hope that they would take from it?
We wanna.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the overwhelming one is, I guess, a message of resilience and pursuing one's dreams and realizing that your dreams, your ambitions, the things that drive you are worthy and good. In the book Theodore, he's got all of his sloth community, and they're all like, "Why are you trying to race? What are you doing? Slow down, knock that off." And I think society tends to do that. I think kids grow up and I know when I was growing up, there was this real push. Everybody's got to go to college. Everybody's got to be a
Hmm.
science
Or good
major,
at
or
sports
good
or
at sports or
yeah.
whatever. But I mean, what makes us humans, what makes us different than other animals is our individuality and our ability to do many things, not to be just specialized on one little thing. A fish can swim really well, and that's about what it does. With humans, I mean, we build rocket ships and paint paintings and make statues and cure diseases, and I think the message to kids that, hey, if you want to do this, even if you're a sloth, if you want to be a racer, okay, you're probably never going to, beat the cheetah, but you can be the fastest sloth you can be, and I think there's a real value in that, of saying, that, hey, be who you are, be resilient, be kind to others, be supportive of others, let others be supportive of you. In the book, right when Theodore gets to his lowest point, another sloth happens to say, "Hey, I'd like to be a racer too," and it's that boost, that community, that support that gives him the resilience to keep carrying on. And I think life is like that. I think as a kid growing up, I think being told, "Hey, do you want to be a dancer? Be a dancer. You want to be a scientist? Be a scientist. If you want to be a welder, go be a welder. Whatever you're doing, be the best at it you can be."
Hmm.
And make the world a better place, for you and for others. And I think the book does kind of convey that message. I think, for really, really young kids, these abstract concepts are a little bit harder. And that's where I think the illustrations and the fun rhymes, can resonate. And it is fun. The kids seem to like it. But I think, for the somewhat older kids, I think it is important to hear that message, of pursuing one's dreams and being resilient in that regard.
And more specifically about the resilience is what we talked about earlier about just not giving up, that
Hmm.
just because it's difficult or you're struggling doesn't mean you cannot do it, and that you have to just keep applying yourself and trying and finding out, trying, like seeking out solutions or different ways to approach that obstacle and believing that you can overcome it, but you can't give up. Like you just can't. And I think that's really important for kids because I just think they get so easily discouraged. I'm just shocked by it. Like
Right.
some 6-year-old thinks he's a failure as an artist because he can't draw the way he thinks, and he thinks he'll never be able to achieve that. And that's amazing to me that these ideas are somehow we acquire them at so young in life, and then we
Hmm.
carry them with us. We carry them with us, and it affects our self-esteem. It affects how we interact with other people, how we see the world, and it all starts with your self-belief. It starts with what you believe you can and cannot do, and your ability to overcome obstacles.
Hmm.
And I think just empowering kids to overcome obstacles is huge.
And to have
Yeah.
confidence in themselves and to have confidence in their dreams and and to be willing to go out there and keep pursuing it, and yeah, because I do, I feel like there is this message that kids get, you're not good at basketball, you shouldn't play basketball, stop that, and
Hmm.
okay, not everybody has to be in the NBA. Maybe you're just playing basketball because you love it, and so play basketball, and
Hmm.
I remember, reading an interview with Hugh Howey, the author of Wool, and he talked about that when he was writing and people were trying to discourage him and say, well, you're never going to be a published author, you're never going to be known. And it's like, okay, but I enjoy my writing. I'm still enjoying what I'm doing.
And he believed in
Yeah,
it, and
what's wrong with that?
it
And
was his passion to do that.
yeah, and he actually used kind of that analogy of basketball. Maybe that's what made it pop into my mind of, you don't have to be in the NBA to play basketball and still enjoy it. And I think that's true. You don't have to be, having your paintings in the Louvre to still enjoy being a painter or,
Right.
Yeah.
whatever, and
Yeah. Yeah, kids do too. Like they have this idea that if they're going to pursue, at least my observations are that they have this idea that if they pursue something, it has to be because they're going to be number one. Like they're going to get the number one ribbon and they're going to be the best and better than everyone else. And I feel like the message of just doing something because it's something you believe in, or doing something because it nourishes your soul or it excites you, or, I feel like that those priorities are lost. Like
Mm.
it's just more about how this will make you the best, rather than how will this make you more human?
and
How will this make you more alive, more
Hmm.
intelligent, more caring?
yeah,
Like those messages aren't really on the radar. It's just more about being the celebrity, and for lack of a better word,
Right.
like being the best.
and I think a lot of kids do. I think our society kind of does a disservice in the sense that I think a lot of times parents or teachers or whoever are almost kind of vicariously living through the kid.
Hmm.
Somebody, his dream was to be a major league baseball player. So by golly, my son's going to play baseball and
Hmm.
pursue that, and be a major league player. Or, I always wanted to go to medical school. By golly, my kid's going to be a doctor. And I had some classmates in medical school that were there and they were miserable, but they were there to please their parents,
Yeah.
and I've seen that in other walks of life too. And I think, when kids have dreams and ambitions and we squash those at an early age, we do them a disservice, and I think we do society a disservice as well. I think it would be very easy to squash the ambition of Michelangelo back in the days of the Renaissance when people were just scrambling to get enough food to eat, but we wouldn't have, the beautiful creations he's made if his ambitions had been squashed like that.
Yeah. No, I agree with everything you guys said. It makes total sense. And I think that yeah, for younger kids when they're struggling at something, it's very easy for them to just give up, to just think that they're not good enough or can't achieve something. And unfortunately, a lot of that comes from learned behavior. A lot of that is
Mhm.
behavior that they've witnessed from their own parents in the struggles that they've had in their lives or through their, in the family, the struggles that they've had, whether it's been work or their relationship with the other spouse or whatever the case may be, the kids witness these things and then think that that's the escape. That's like when something is a struggle or something's going wrong or something can't be achieved, I'm just to give up because I saw my dad do
Yeah,
it. I saw my mom do
yeah.
Yeah,
it. So now when I
sure.
can't achieve a simple drawing or I can't achieve, I can't get a good grade on this math test or something, I'm just not good enough at it. I'm just a failure at it. And
Oh,
unfortunately,
it's so heartbreaking.
it is, and unfortunately it is. It's a lot of it's learned behavior. And one of the things that I always tried to teach my boys in particular, my wife and I did, was just listen, you don't have to be the best at everything that you do. We want you to go out and number one, enjoy what you're doing, but number two, do the best that you think you can, or do the
Yes.
best that you can at it. And
Right.
my boys were pretty decent athletes. They grew up playing sports. I coached all their teams, so I was a coach on all their teams all the way up through high school. But there were times that they thought that they couldn't achieve a certain level within the sport that they were playing. My younger son in particular, I never forget this conversation that I had with him. We were driving home and he goes, Dad, I saw these kids coming out for the basketball team, and he's been on the basketball team for a couple years, and he's like, Dad, I really want to achieve being a starter on the team this year, and I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. And I'm like, why? Why do you think you're not? Well, did you see all those other kids? They're really good. And I said, listen, I don't want you to focus on being a starter. What I want you to focus on is doing the best that you can do and work the harder than anybody else out there. If you do those two things, good things will happen. And I
That's a
had
great
to kind
message.
of I
That is
had to
right.
kind of convey that to him in a way that not only as a dad, but just kind of feeling his
Right.
frustration, and not trying to just say, you know what, son, you're probably right. There's a lot of kids out there. I don't know if you're going to do it. I didn't want to convey that message to him. I wanted to give him at least a little bit of hope in himself
Hmm.
to be the best that he could be at a sport that he really loved to play. And he did that. He went out, he worked hard. He worked harder than anybody else, in my opinion, as a coach on the team. He worked harder than anybody else. And he was adamant that he was going to come in earlier and stay later and work harder at home at it. And he ended up being a starter on the team. And it's not because of anything that I did or anything that any of the other coaches did. As a matter of
He
fact,
did that.
when we made the starting lineup, I took myself out of the picture completely. I told the two other coaches, I said, I'm removing myself because my son's on the team. I'm removing myself. So you guys make the decision on who the starters are. And he was one of the starters, and he ended up being one of the better players on it, ended up making captain, and ultimately got a
Wow.
scholarship to play basketball in college. So
That's
those kind of
awesome.
things
Great.
happen through not giving up, not
Yes.
just forgetting that you can't do it, and just laying down and saying, I'm done. I can't do it. There's no way I can do this.
Hmm.
Continue to
Yeah.
And
strive
you
for those
didn't,
dreams.
yeah, and you didn't make the goal for him to be a starter. You made the
No,
goal for him to apply himself
And be the
and to
best
keep
he could be.
trying.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's such a great lesson for him to have learned for life in general, not just, basketball, but I mean every pursuit in life, when
You
times
have
are
that, you feel that way
yeah,
about
when
everything.
things are getting tough and you're feeling discouraged, rather than focusing on, the negative outcome that could happen, focus on what you can do right now to do the
right,
best you can.
right.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think there's just so many applications for that in life in general. I
Hmm.
think that's one of the beautiful things about sports and team sports is learning those lessons of resilience and teamwork and optimism and hard work and yeah, they can carry you through a lot of other things, beyond, outside of the athletic realm.
But
Right.
I mean, that's a proud thing for
Yeah,
you to
sure.
like to
Yeah.
have
Hmm.
that memory and that experience with
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
son.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for my son, it was a tough lesson for him, because here I am. I think he was probably looking for me to, kind of give him a hug and say, it's all right, son. You'll be okay. Everything's going to be fine. I think he was kind of looking for that, but I didn't want to be that. I wanted to give him that little bit of spark to say, you know what? Why can't I do it? Why can't I achieve that? And yeah, for him to be able to do it and is something that is remarkable. And to add to what we're talking about here, as far as resilience goes, there's a lot of dads that I coach, for on just being a better dad. And one of the things that I always try to encourage the dads that I talk to is, listen, you don't have to focus if you're not doing the greatest at being a dad right now today. You don't have to focus on being the best dad tomorrow. Just focus on being 1% better tomorrow. 1%. I said, how
Yeah.
how how significant is that? And they say, well, that's not a lot. Right, it's not a lot, but guess what? Over a year, if you focus on
Mhm.
being 1% better each day over a year, imagine what that accumulates to, and how much
Yeah.
better you'll be a year from now to where you are right now. So just focusing on just a little bit. So encouraging our kids to say, hey, we don't have to be this superstar tomorrow. But if we could just get a little bit better, you drawing Theodore, saying, you know what? I don't have to get the whole figure down right now, but if I could get his face structure down today, and then I'll focus on, his head structure tomorrow, and then his arm structure the next day, and just and then imagining where that's at, a week from now or 2 weeks from now. It's the same thing with our kids, right? We just focus on letting them get a little bit better every single day.
That's
good
awesome.
message.
That really is. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's the message of Theodore is like, listen,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be this superstar athlete where I'm just running these races and winning them and all that other stuff tomorrow. But I just want to focus on just getting myself a little bit better every single day and knowing what I can do at the end of achieving that. So very cool.
Yep.
Well, listen, I want to give you guys an opportunity. Where's the best place to look you guys up, learn a little bit more about you, pick up the book, all those sorts of things?
Oh, thank you. So we're on, Amazon, we're on Barnes and Noble. You should be able to order it through your bookshop. On my website, jlmccreedy.com, I also have links to my book. And then I have, in case people want to learn more about Sam, I have, there's an old blog that I used to do from all the previous places that we lived called Tonga Time. And there's a link on the landing page to that as well. But probably jlmccreedy.com, and our name is 2 E's. So that always confuses people because most McCreedys, I guess, are an EA and we're an EE.
Yeah, we're the rare McCreedys or EEs, I guess.
So it's jlmccreedy.com. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you guys very much for being on. So cool that you guys are in Italy and I'm getting an opportunity to chat with somebody from overseas, but I appreciate you guys being on. I really love this story. I hope the book really does well as far as, book sales and all that. But kids, when I say I hope it does well, I hope it does well inspiring kids. I hope it does well inspiring families to really help them to not only go through the challenges they're going through, but get through them and break through those barriers and become better for not only their family, their kids, each other, but also for the kids to be better in life as well. So thank you guys very much for sharing their story and the book.
Thank you for having us.
Brian, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun.
I love your positivity and your message. I mean, it's just thank you for being that spark. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I told you guys at the beginning before we started recording, if my wife and I are ever out and decide to go to Italy, I'm going to make sure we look you guys up so we can break some bread together. Yeah.
Please do. That would be great.
Absolutely. Come on out and you can visit the local Lego store too.
Yes.
All right. Very cool. Well, listen, guys, it's been another episode of Dad Up. I want to thank my good friends, Dr. Sam and Jesse McCreedy, for being on the show. Make sure you guys check out their book that they've written, Theodore. I'm forgetting the title already. Theodore.
The Sloth Who Wants to Race.
The Sloth Who Wants to Race. Yeah, Theodore, the Sloth Who Wants to Race. There you go. There's the picture. Thank you for that, Jesse. But make sure you guys do that out. You can check it out in the links below. Go to her website, go to Amazon, all those different places that she said. I'll make sure that those are in the links below for you to do that. And listen, as always, if you are not yet subscribed to my show, please make sure you do that so you don't miss any of the awesome guests that I have on each and every week. And I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of Dad Up. Wow, another amazing episode in the books. So much was shared, and I'm truly grateful my guest was able to pour into you to help you elevate your dad game and really dad up. Make sure you bang that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're here, please don't forget to leave me a rating and a review. I always appreciate the feedback. And one last thing, don't forget, your role as a dad is one of the most important roles you have. So if you need a little help or have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on my website at daduptribe.com or at my Instagram page at Dad Up Podcast. Until next time, everyone, Dad Up.